Hello, I am Fred, and I am going to be taking you through how to master any plan in 7 questions. This is particularly pertinent to you if you're involved in change, transformation, R&D, projects, systems, IT. If you're building a sales plan, a marketing plan, a business plan, this is a way to master the change that you wish to bring with your plan. So looking here at 7Q, there are 7 questions in this plan, and they're in a certain order for reasons I'm going to go into. Now, the first question that you need to master before you complete a plan is why. Why are you doing it? And I call this the purpose, the benefits, which include specific metrics. Now, that might be earnings, pounds and dollars, but it needs to be specific. If you can't explain why you want to do something with specific metrics, you aren't going to deliver anything that gives any tangible value. And outcomes. Describe the outcomes that you want so that people, when looking at it, can understand this and help you deliver them, help you get them. Now, the why comes first because you need to know your purpose to do something. So the next question we move on to is, what are we going to do that helps us deliver the purpose, the benefits and the outcomes that we want? So I call this, you've got scope, deliverables, you might create a specification. This describes the high level things you're going to do to deliver the benefits required. The importance of putting what second is that it is subservient to the why. You can come up with many ways to solve someone's problem. There's more than one. And actually looking at planning in a way that says, let's come up with 5 or 6 different scenarios to solve this outcome that we want is really good practice to help you get clearer in your planning. If you start with what, you're already fixed. And then people tend to try and justify why they're doing it afterwards, maybe even complaining that they need to justify it. But if you don't know why you're doing something, stop. The third question is where. Now, that might be in the markets, such as we're going into aerospace, pharmaceutical, construction. We've got regions. Are we going to be doing it in things like the Middle East, Europe, America, Asia? And you've got, in a lot of projects now, systems. We're going to be doing it in our CRM. We're going to be putting it into our ERP. This is where you're going to do it. And the first 3 questions that we've just covered are really important to get into and define before you move forwards into asking anybody to give you a plan. Because without this information, people can't give you an effective plan. Now, the next question is how. We're getting into the more detail. This is where your planners really need to get involved. So think about the approach. Maybe you're going to guide them on the strategy. We take the work that we think is required to deliver the scope or the deliverables, and we break it down into a work breakdown structure, which is really saying, if I want to build a house, I need to break this work into pieces. I need to have an architecture design. I need to apply for planning. I'm going to have to get some quotes. I'm going to have to order materials. I need to organize my resources. That's the breakdown of the work. And then you may put in here the tasks. They're all how you're going to do it. It's really important before you get into your resources that you know what you're doing, where you're doing it, and how you intend to do it. Because the how will dictate, who do we need to do this? So this is the team or resources that you need. Often missed at this stage is, who are the stakeholders that are going to have some kind of influence or say over this project? So that would not only be the people that are asking for the plan, maybe the sponsors, the customers, but who's going to influence it? Are there people involved in approving the plan, or are there people going to be trying to block the plan? And you need to have a strategy of how you deal with them. But they're all stakeholders in the project. You need to think about the availability of your resources, because if you don't have a clear availability, then you're not going to be able to determine when you're going to be able to deliver this. So the 6th question is when. Now that is the timelines. Maybe there's milestones or gateways to doing this. And then you may have other things such as roadmaps to draw up. This is when we think we're going to do something by. Now let's be clear. Starting, like many people do, with what, without understanding why they're doing it, they go straight across to when. We need to do it by this time. And then we start talking money, but nobody's sat down and thought, where are we doing it? How are we going to do it? And who's going to be needed to do it? So you can only think about your timelines when that work's done. And the seventh and final question is how much. Now, let's be clear. This is costs because the revenue or the monies or the benefits go in the why. So costs would include the costs of your resources. And I'm always a big proponent to measuring the cost of your internal employee costs, because without it, you have no idea what you're actually spending on your changes. You may have capital expenditure. You might be putting down a new production line and there's a lot of equipment to buy. You may have materials. There may be subcontractor costs, but they all go in the how much. Now we've reached the end of the 7 questions, and I say planning is not linear, it is circular. We now iterate, and that's the beauty of the 7Q planning wheel, is it encourages you to say, well, we've just now written down when and how much. We can now compare that to our why, the reason for doing the project in the first place. And sometimes you may sit there and think, this is going to take way too long and it's going to cost way too much. We're going to kill it. Or actually, let's iterate and spin again. Do we need to tweak why we're doing this and adjust our metrics that we are trying to achieve? Maybe we've gone into a kind of more complicated scope than we probably needed to. Maybe we look at how we're going to approach this and say, do you know what, we could do this a bit in a different way. Maybe it's the resources. Maybe they're not available. Maybe we have to choose different resources. And that will all impact the timelines, which will then impact how much it's all going to cost. So you keep going round until you iterate towards a final project plan or business plan or marketing plan or sales plan that everybody can buy into. This is the art of mastering a plan. And you imagine everybody in the business knows how to use these 7 questions, and everybody knows how to present a plan. You now have one language for change, and that's what 7Q is. 7Q, 7 questions, is one language for change. Now, if you're involved in change, or maybe you know someone that's involved in change, make sure you share this video with them to help them on their journey into change in the next 12 months. Do subscribe, like, and feel free to get in touch with any questions you've got around transformation and change and putting 7Q into your organization or company. Have a great one.